So we've got this new gas tank that we're going to be installing. So first, the easy part is just assembling it. So all you do is, it comes with a whole bunch of nuts and bolts. This bracket obviously goes, this is towards the back and this is towards the front. You've got to put these straps on. Make sure that you squeeze these dowels in. It's easy if I just put some needle nose pliers in here to spread them and squeeze them in. Just make sure that you have one dowel without threads, and then on the other side you have a dowel with threads. So that's pretty easy. These are all 10 millimeter, or sorry, they're 1/2 inch, and they're carriage bolts, so it's pretty easy to screw on. So once we have that done, the first thing we got to do is work on dropping the current gas tank skid. Before we do anything, we need to depressurize the fuel system. So there's two real ways to do this. There's either a Schrader valve on the fuel rail that you can poke in and release, or what I'm going to do is you come here to your relays. You can see right here, fuel pump relay right here. I'm just going to remove this so that the pump's no longer running and run the Jeep until it dies. So that'll get rid of all the fuel in the system. That done, we need to loosen the fuel filler neck. So it's these four, they're T25 Torx bolts, and then we'll get around to dropping the tank now that the system no longer has fuel in the lines, so as minimal amount of fuel spills out as possible. Next plan, before I disconnect everything, what I'm going to do is put the jack right up underneath it, and I'm going to loosen all these bolts just to drop it just a little bit without putting too much strain on the lines, so then I can get more room to go in and disconnect everything, because I'm going to try and do that rather than go through the wheel well. So drop it just a tiny bit and then go over top. These bolts are all 1/2 inches, and for some of them you're going to need a long extension to get at. It can be a pain, but I've done it before, so let's try it. I have two fuel lines, and if you can see, my vice grips are on one. I use those to just tighten the clips, and then you just pull and they release. And only, it doesn't even look like any fuel spilled, just a tiny bit did because of when I drained it earlier. Here's a look. I don't know how well you guys can see, better than I can probably, but there's also the line going to the charcoal canister we're going to have to undo, and there should be a line for the breather for the differential that we'll have to get rid of before we drop this thing completely. You should have when you get it all the way down. So you got to undo this one here. As you can see, I cut it in the past, and I had like a little splice going on that I ripped that I'll have to put back together. But so there's a plug here, there's an electrical connector here. There are the two fuel lines which I got earlier and showed you, and that's about it. And then we got this breather zip tied right here to the fuel filler that you'll probably want to take out. But yeah, and now we can just get rid of this and drop this tank into the new skid plate. See how it goes. While you have this out, if you have a later model TJ and when you fill fuel all the way up it burps out fuel, if you take out this fuel pump right here and reach under, you can pull out, there's a plunger. I'm not going to do it because I did it a few years ago, but you pull out a plunger and just sand down the sides, and that will allow the plunger to move freely and stop that burping. It's like free mod for you. Other pictures of gas tanks online, I noticed mine has like a little extra lip here. I don't know if it's just the 06 models, but basically the bolts that came for the straps weren't long enough, so I had to go to Ace Hardware and buy some longer ones. These were 3-inch ones, and I finally got it pretty tight, and now I'm ready to put it back into the Jeep. Assembling, before you do anything with the gas tank, you want to put the carriage bolts in their places. So you slide them in, and then you put these retainer rings. They're actually quite a pain to slide up on top to hold them in place. So that way once we get the gas tank up, we can put the nuts back on. So once you're doing that, I started getting the gas tank up about halfway and then reconnected everything. And now I just finally put all the nuts on. With the retainer rings made it much easier. And then tightened them all down to 19 foot-pounds. One note is that there were 7 bolts originally on this new tank. There are only 6. The one in that, like towards the front passenger side, is no longer there. And once they're tightened down, we just gotta reattach this fuel filler neck and get the pump priming again. We should be good to go. Here's the new look. It's definitely quite a bit higher than it was. I didn't measure it. I wish I did, but it's definitely at least an inch and a quarter raise, and I had an 1.25 inch body lift, and I just like the look. It's a good deal.